Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome here if you are new. If we have never met, my name is Tara and my channel name is The Planting Bug. Okay, and in today's video we're going to talk all about Syngoniums. I only own two, but I definitely want to grow my collection, but I am very fastly falling in love with these plants. So I'm going to show you all of my care tips on how to care for this plant. Okay, so we're going to start off with this beauty here. This is the Albo Variegated Syngonium. In my opinion, these are a little bit rare just because they have the variegation on the leaves. And unfortunately, nowadays, these are quite pricey. Syngoniums are also known as arrowhead plants or butterfly plants. And you can kind of see why they look like butterflies. But what I love so much is the striking leaves on these. I love how every leaf is different. If you look at this one, it's got the gorgeous dark green, but then a little bit of a variegated leaf right here. When I started owning plants, I would hear people say variegated leaves. I didn't really know what that meant. It just means that they're not a basic green leaf. They've got lighter veins in them. They have other colors in the leaves that just show up instead of this green color. But if you look, each leaf looks different. Some almost look like they're I don't know, that army camouflage color. But I just love the variegation on these. If you look at this one here, it's just as unique. Every one of them are just so different. And then here's this one here. Now, Syngoniums are native to Brazil, Mexico, Bolivia, Ecuador. So they're definitely across the world. I live in the US, I live in Utah. And honestly, a lot of the plants that I show you guys, I will tell you that they're rare because to me they're rare. I've said in some of my videos in the past that, this is a rare plant. To me, it's rare because it's really hard to find in my little town. So when I come across something like this, I snag it if the price isn't too high. This was a little bit pricey, but I really wanted it. I had been, looking at it on Pinterest for quite a while. As you can see, it's very small, so it's got some growing to do. I got this shortly after Thanksgiving, so I've had it maybe a month now, so not too long. But what I'm finding out is it's pretty easy. It is not a picky plant, and so I'm very excited for this thing to grow and establish and get acclimated to my home so that I can start propagating it, sharing it with my friends, and just producing more plants of like these around my house. So let's go ahead now and move into the plant care tips and just what I have learned about Syngoniums. Like I said, I do have another one. I'll share that with you in just a moment. But let's go ahead and talk about lighting on these first. So lighting with your Syngoniums, they do very well in medium to low light, but they thrive in bright indirect light. When you have a variegated plant like this, you really want it to be in a brightly lit room so that you can get more of this variegation on it. If you put this in a really low lit room, all your leaves are gonna look more like this and you're not gonna have a lot of variegation on them. So they thrive and just turn into beautiful leaves with lots of variegation on it in a brightly lit room. So I have this in this room you see here. It is a bright room that gets indirect sunlight all day long. And so far it is really liking this area. I'm not sure that I would put this in a direct west facing window, especially in the summertime when it gets really bright, hot heat. I'm not sure that that would be necessarily great for these leaves because they're very, very thin and frail. So I would just focus on having them pulled away from a west facing window or even have them in an east facing window so they get that bright morning light. But yes, just, the best room to have these in is in a bright lit room that gets indirect sunlight all day long. That's the room that I have mine in. And like I said, it does very well here. And now before we move into more plant care tips, I want to show you the other Syngonium that I have. As you can see, this one is definitely bigger, more well established. And this is just your regular Syngonium Pythophylum, I believe is how you say it. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong. But as you can see, this one is just beautiful. It has got these bright, light green leaves. They do have some variegation on them. As you can see right here, the white veining in them. These tend to grow tall and viney. So a moss pole would be great in these. I have not put one in here yet, but this one is producing new growth. As you can see, like right there, it's got a new leaf coming in. And we're in winter right now, and it's still just doing really well. I have this one in my bedroom, and it is next to a west-facing window, but I normally have the shades drawn down, so it's not getting like bright, direct sunlight. So it does really well there and seems to be really happy. I have not propagated Syngoniums yet, but I have heard they're very easy to propagate. So I may choose to do that here in this video to show you how to do it. I've done a little bit of research and it's very similar to propagating a monstera. But yeah, you can propagate these if they tend to get viney and skinny. You can propagate them and put them right back in the soil to kind of make them bushier. Or you can just produce a whole new plant on its own by propagating it. So I'm gonna go ahead and play around with that, whether I do it in this video or not. I'll definitely share it with you guys, but just look how gorgeous this is. Like I said, I really wanna grow my collection of Syngoniums. They've got a Syngonium holly out there that is a beautiful pink color. And then there's other Syngoniums, I can't remember the name of them right now, but the leaves are almost a pale off-white, and they've got this really dark edging. And I wanna get that one too. I'll figure out what the name is. But as I grow my collection, I will bring them to you. I always like to just show you the new plants that I'm getting in and what I'm learning about them along the way, the good, the bad, the ugly. But this one here, just a little backstory on it. I got a planter box for my friend after my cat died this past year, and it was filled with a bunch of plants. They were smaller, and then they just started to grow out of the box really big. I did a video on breaking up the box and separating all those plants and repotting them in their own plants. And this was one of them, and it is just taken off and is doing awesome. I didn't even realize that I like Syngoniums until I started taking care of this plant. So then when I started looking into Syngoniums and found the Albo Variegated Syngonium, I knew that was one that I wanted. So when I came across it at the store, I grabbed it. So like I said, these are the only two that I have, but I am fastly falling in love with them and want to grow this collection. I don't think a lot of people talk about them. It is unfortunate that some of the prices on them are so high right now. I don't think pricing on this one is as high as that variegated Albo that I just showed you. So yeah, if you want to start with one of these, but honestly, also I wanted to mention for plant newbies, new plant mamas that are scared to take care of high maintenance plants, Syngoniums are the way to go. They're very low maintenance and easy to take care of. So I would highly recommend starting off with one of these plants or like a monstera to get started in learning how to care for plants, because they're very easy and low maintenance. They're just not picky. They also talk to you if they need to be watered. You'll see the leaves will kind of start to droop and look sad, and then you water them and they perk up. So like, we always love a plant that communicates with us and tells us what it wants. I probably water this plant once a week. But let's go ahead and get into some more plant care tips. Okay, so I'm gonna carry this one just because it's so much lighter than the other one. But let's go ahead and talk about watering. Like I said, I water this plant probably once a week. Now in the spring and summer months when it's hot, you probably wanna make sure you're keeping your soil moist most of the time. So watering it really well once a week. And when I water them, I really water them thoroughly. Like I do all my plants. I make sure the water is running all the way through the pot, all the water's coming out before I'm putting it back in. Like this is a decorative plant. I talk about this in all of my videos. But so here is the nursery pot that this came in. I run my water through this. I'm not picky with the type of water that I use for these plants, so I can take it right over to my tap water at my sink. I run water through this very thoroughly. I let all the water drain out of the draining holes. Once it's fully drained out, then I put it back in the pot because you do not want water accumulating down at the bottom of the pot and having the roots just sit in water, because that is bad and can cause root rot and very easily kill your plant. So make sure you're watering it thoroughly. Make sure you're seeing that the water is running all the way through the draining holes. And yeah, that is kind of what I do with watering. In the winter months, you can let the soil dry out a little bit more. It doesn't really need to stay moist just because it's not as hot, and you just can let the soil dry out a little bit more. It will not hurt it. So if you skip this, or you're going out of town on a trip, it's not one that you need to have someone come to your house and babysit your plants. It'll be fine if it skips a watering. But yeah, just maybe watering it once a week. I do use moisture meters. I can show you that here in a little bit, but I do use moisture meters on most of my plants to see if they need a good watering, or you can just do the finger test where you stick your finger down into the soil 1-2 inches just to see if the soil is moist. If it isn't, then it does need to get a watering done. But like I said, I do try to most of the weeks just water most of my plants all at once at the same time. So I just go around with a moisture meter to see if they need to be watered or not, and that works for me. So temperature on these plants, since this is a semi-tropical plant, you definitely want to make sure this plant isn't getting too cold. Like I said, I live in Utah and we're in the winter months now, so this is not a plant that I would want to have sitting right by a window where it's getting a cold draft, or sitting by my front door where people are coming in and it's getting a cold draft all the time. So you definitely want to have it in a central location of your house where it's getting great sun and it's also staying warm. So I would not want this to drop below 60 degrees. It's just kind of how all houseplants are. They tend to do well indoors and not dropping below 60 degrees, and this should be fine at that temperature. Now, when it comes to pests with these plants, it's like any plant and the advice I would give on any of my plants. But these plants tend to not have high pest control problems. But what I try to do, and my advice to tell people to do is, number one, you don't want to overwater it. When you overwater it, it can help influence moisture, which can influence bugs. So if you're watering it properly and not too much, that will help keep bugs away. But also, you always want to make sure that you are dusting off your leaves. That is the best way to keep bugs down. So maybe twice a month, I go through and I dust off all my leaves. You can do it after you've mist them. These plants like to be misted every once in a while, but honestly, just taking a microfiber cloth, dusting these off front and back, and just making sure that dust isn't accumulating, which can attract bugs, is the best way to keep bugs down on these. If you do get bugs, just do research on how to get rid of them. Neem oil is great and has helped me in the past with pests. But yeah, just a good rule of thumb is if you're watering it properly and you're keeping the leaves well dusted, you should not have any issues with pests with this plant. So I had talked earlier about how the Syngoniums are a viney plant. They can grow tall and viney, and those skinny little stems can kind of start to droop. If that happens, you can propagate them and put them back in the soil to produce more of a bushy plant, or you can allow them to grow and you can get moss poles. This is what a moss pole looks like. I just get mine on Amazon. You just stick that in the middle of the plant and your vines cling and grow on these. So this is something that I will probably end up using once mine gets a little bit bigger and I notice that it needs some help. But I did just want to share this product with you. They're great. I see a lot of people use them and I'm just starting to use them now. And yeah, they're just a nice little addition to a plant that needs a little bit of help in growing tall. Okay, and I also talked about a moisture meter, so I did want to show mine to you. Here it is. You just stick this part into the plant and it tells you if it is dry and needs to be watered or if it is moist and does not. So I'll show you right now how that looks. So here is the Syngonium that I've been showing you here. I'm gonna go ahead and stick that into the soil, and I will show you here if it is dry and needs to be watered or moist. So I've stuck that in, and as you can see, it is just barely moist. But like I said, this is a plant that doesn't need to stay moist all the time, so I will probably wait a few days before I water this. But this is kind of a nice little gadget to get if you're worried and trying to figure out when to water your plants or not, because definitely overwatering a plant can be very bad for it. So another thing, when it comes to replanting plants, just in general, you probably want to wait and do it in your spring and summer months. They're best to replant in the growing seasons, and that is spring and summer months. But if you have a plant and you're noticing the bottom of the nursery pot is becoming very root bound, and your plants, your leaves just don't seem to be doing good, you've got a lot of leaves dropping and dying on you, it may be time to repot it. So honestly, if you have a plant like that that needs help and it's the winter months, I say go ahead and repot it. It is not going to hurt it. But if you can wait and you really want to replant any of your plants, it is best to wait for spring and summer months unless it is in critical and dire need of getting repotted because it is root bound. Hey guys, as I was doing this video, I'm so excited. I was putting this plant back and I noticed it's got a new little growth. Look at that cute little thing. So that is the first little new growth that I have on this Albo Variegated Syngonium. Super thrilled about that. But yeah, this is the little stand that I have it on. And like I said, I've got it in this room that has got a west-facing window there, so it gets a ton of indirect sunlight all day long and is very happy. Okay guys, so that is it for this video. I hope it was helpful for you. Like I said, if you're wanting to own your first plant ever and you're a little bit scared, this is definitely one. It's not a diva, very easy to take care of, so I would highly recommend starting with these. Like I said, I hope this was useful for you, and if you are not subscribed yet, I would love to have you subscribe, become part of my plant family. So hit that red subscribe button down below, turn on the notification bell so you're notified each and every time I upload, and I will be back soon with some more plant and care tips. Oh, and by the way, Happy New Year, guys.